It just wouldn't be a stream by us if we didn't have some audio issues. So I'm actually
technical issue?
going. It's just an audio thing. I'm not going to go into it. But I do want to kind of circle back and let Luis kind of give his statement again because it's important. And without audio, that was not worth doing.
I closed that out and don't have it written down, but I'll do my best to recreate it. That's okay. All right. Again, I'll say here that I believe Black Lives Matter, and specifically Black trans individuals are in specifically Black trans individuals are at high risk. So it's important that we focus not only on Black lives, but also on Black trans individuals where we can. The most important thing you can do as a person is to listen at this moment, listen to the voices of the Black community to understand what they need and how best you can help. Being an ally means listening and following those voices and their examples when you can. Please do your best to support Black communities, Black queer communities, Black trans communities, all in equal measure as best as you can. If you're looking to provide support, you can visit blacklivesmatter.carrd.co. That's blacklivesmatter.card with 2 R's.co for links for petitions, places to donate, and other ways you can help out and support the Black communities and people who are in need of help now and every day, actually. Again, I want to say I believe that Black Lives Matter. And again, thank you for letting me take a chance to address that here.
Well, thank you again so much for saying it. And
we agree.
So important we have to say it twice. So.
Yes, definitely. I think we need to say it a lot, all the time.
Yeah, say it as often as we can. So again, thank you, and thank you for sharing that. And hopefully we can post a link for that somewhere. And I'll leave that to someone more technically savvy than I am. So Luis, we're going to have you here today to talk about some upcoming books. Again, our Paizo tradition of interviewing Luis, who has all the best lowdown of everything coming out for Pathfinder here soon. The inside track, if you will. Don't worry, there's not as much attention given here, so I'm sure if you let a couple secrets slip or anything, it won't get back to anyone that you work with.
No, this is like not at all.
Well, so far I've made it's just 2 years without anyone complaining. So maybe,
oh, there you go.
I'll keep the streak going.
So as I said at the top, Luis is a developer at Paizo. He works on the Lost Omen lines and Lost Omen line. And you guys have a lot coming out. So anyone that did not watch the PaizoCon panels, first off, you should. They were excellent. I believe they're still available on Paizo's Twitch stream. So I would definitely check those out. But we have some great books coming out for the Lost Omens line here shortly. So I figured we'd just kind of go through a couple of these, talk a little bit about them, see if I can get some insight from Luis, and maybe we can cajole a little extra information out of them, shall we?
Yes.
So the first book
twist my arm, me who volunteered to come on to the interview to talk about these things.
It's true. I've got to talk about this thing that I love and want to come out
I'm
here.
so excited to the point where I intentionally seek you out immediately after the banquet to be like, oh, let me talk about it now.
Let me talk about this amazing thing. Well, I suppose let's jump into the first of these amazing things and the most the one that will be coming out the most recent, or the
soonest?
The soonest is the word you're looking for.
Which is actually in July 2020, which would be the Lost Omens Legends. So the short version of this is, little sting on the back, is that the heroes of the Age of Lost Omens forged their path through an uncertain world, but that world has been shaped by many others who came before and now stand beside them. Lost Omens Legends provides details on 42 of the Inner Sea region's biggest personalities, from queens and kings that rule the present to distant figures from Golarion's past. I am very excited for this book. As a lore junkie,
sounds super cool.
I am ridiculously excited. So we do have a couple questions for you. So the first one I have is, what is the goal for this book? Is this intended to showcase the Lost Omens setting, or should we expect some of these 42 characters to maybe be involved in upcoming adventure paths or society chains, or what was the thought process?
Well, first off, I think it's going to be a mix of both, like just showcasing the Lost Omens setting, the Undersea and all that, and possibly setting up seeds that we can then, grow and then use later in our adventures and other material. Whether or not we will with every single individual, we'll see. But the main idea here is we wanted to show off who the movers and shakers are for the Inner Sea. We have plenty of individuals that will show up in our previous setting books. We'll mention here is Queen Elvana of Kyonin or whatever, and say that she's the ruler, and maybe give you a sentence or two that say, she's super cool. She has a pet bird. All right, see you later, and never
and an awesome crown.
Awesome crown, and never really give you any more information than that unless we happen to touch upon it in a different campaign setting book later. If we did, for example, Kyonin book, we'd probably talk about her at length. Or if we did an adventure path featuring that NPC. So Tarbafon has shown up in the Carrion Crown AP, for example, as part of the background, so you get to learn more about him there. We have Queen Abigail show up in Hell's Vengeance. Individuals that are important, we say they're important, but only show them off at the time when it's almost in a way convenient for us because we happen to be in their area. So we wanted to take a chance to show you who is important, why they're important, and what they're doing. And if you're a GM, get you excited for maybe, hey, I see the plots that Queen Elvana has in place for Kyonin. I'd like to get my players involved in them, have a campaign set in that, or just even a little adventure where they meet her for a bit and get to know her, or have a player read through this book and get really excited and say, oh, hey, Old Mage Jitembe had cool magic, and here's some cool spells. I want to learn those spells. Hey, GM, can you find a way for me to find some of his old relics and whatnot and get access to these spells and have cool new magic that no one has seen for thousands of years.
Yeah, if you're going to include Old Mage Jitembe's spell book in this book, I am sold.
Yeah, I'm sold also. 100% sold on this.
I think the spell book itself is with Jitembe, wherever he might be at this point.
Damn.
But there's, one or two spells that have made it into the book that he knows and maybe helped develop himself.
Oh, wow.
Be some like spells and other things like that in this book. It's not just like a lore book. There's going to be some mechanics and stuff in it too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge lore book. Each individual is getting at least 2 pages. Some of them are getting 4 pages. Some important individuals like Jitembe are getting
That's really
big
cool.
write-up. And the lore is presented in a variety of ways, which I think is the most exciting thing. When hopefully what people like most about this, it could be very easy for us to just say, all right, here's Jitembe, here's Abigail, here's Tarbafon, and then just give you the same typical write-ups that you're expecting from NPCs that you've seen in previous books. But instead, we have that where it helps or where it makes sense. But for someone like Jitembe, we have like old tales that explain how he learned and mastered and recovered magic and brought it back into the world. Is that tale true? You don't know, but it's one of those old stories that's presented as if it's a story that you could read in Golarion, read it in the setting that, maybe you hear it all the time from the people of the Magambia. Or if you ever asked, hey, where did magic come from? You might hear the story as one of the different explanations for it.
That's
really
cool.
Wow.
Really cool.
I am very intrigued by that. So, so of the 42 legends in this book, which by the way, 42 is a huge number. I kind of tried to think about
it
at
is
least
the answer
that
to
many
life
of
in the
them.
universe.
I have a theory. How many of them are Jagares? I feel like there's a lot of those guys running around.
I think we joked about having just a whole book of Ancaskrakins as well.
Oh yeah.
At the panel for this. So I think we have like 2 or 3 different family lines that we could just make entire books out of at that point. We could have the whole, here's all the Thrones, the book.
Yeah, got to save that for later. But of the 42 legends in this book, which is the one that you are most excited for?
I think so. This is hard. That's not very kind of you. I think there
Pick
are
your favorite
two
child,
that
Luis.
I'm really excited about. One is Baba Yaga.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Because one, it shows that not only is she an important figure, but she's still an important figure whose influence still is affecting Golarion even after she's had a whole AP that's focused on her. She may have gone away, but you know, you can still feel her influence in the world, and that also lets us come up with cool new mechanics to give out through Baba Yaga. She is notorious for doing things like, hey, pick up all that pepper that I spilled next to my fireplace by hand, and maybe I'll give you a cool thing. So she serves as an awesome patron, which we can tie into the APG that's going to be coming out right alongside this book and say, hey, if you're a witch, there's all this cool stuff in the APG. But maybe if you're lucky might be the right word. If your GM wills it, maybe your patron, instead of being the standard patrons that show up in the book, maybe your patron's Baba Yaga, and she has brand new magic that no other witches have available because she's only willing to share it with people that she's a patron for. So
That
that's
is
a
very
really
cool.
cool, exciting thing, just to show how it ties into the mechanics that we can throw out there, and also just because it's fun that we got it to work out alongside the APG release.
Wow,
But
that is amazing.
So, talking about
the
Baba Yaga, do you give
yeah,
specifics on how to get your very own chicken hut? Because I played Reign of Winter, and chicken hut's cool.
no, I think she's not willing to give anyone their own chicken
Ah,
hut, but she does
No.
have her patron abilities and stuff give you a specific type of familiar that instead of being, your bird or your dog or your cat or whatever, you can just choose an object, bring it to life, and it's just an animate object familiar,
huh.
and it can
You
walk
have your
around
own
and stuff.
creepy
And
porcelain doll.
yeah, it can be a porcelain doll, but if it can't move, if you decide, hey, here's, I don't know, a little toy hut that I have, it'll grow legs so it can walk
All right,
around. So
that
you
is
can have
cool. That
your own
works.
tiny little familiar version
Oh
of the
my
chicken hut.
gosh, this
Okay,
is
so you can have a
amazing.
tiny chicken hut. So there you go.
People in the
Chicken
chat
hut
are
familiar.
freaking out. They're very excited about this idea.
The other individual I think that is probably my other favorite in here is one that I worked, I guess, not that hard to get in because I'm the developer on the line and I write the outline and I ask people to write it in for me. There's this figure that I mentioned in the Firebrand entry for the Lost Omens character guide. It talks about, oh, there's all these cool individuals that have become notorious among the Firebrands, that if you know the Firebrands, that means they're a fourth mark. That means they're like the most popular Firebrands that everyone knows them. And one of them mentioned is a figure just titled Sapphire Butterfly. I don't explain who Sapphire Butterfly is because turns out she's going to show up in this book.
Oh.
Sapphire Butterfly
wow.
being a vigilante who was played by one of my players in my Hell's Rebels campaign that I have
That's really
then
cool.
ascended into a full NPC
Nice.
status.
That's
All
I
right,
see
we
the
gotta
fringe
play-
benefit to playing in.
We gotta play
Paizo.
games with
That's
Luis,
it.
guys. You know?
So having an NPC that came from my home game, but also is so tied to the Firebrands, and there's I think one or two other Firebrand related characters here in the book as well. But just like this is, my stamp on Golarion that I get to put here and say, look, that was my thing, and I guess technically my buddy Tony's character as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not stealing it from him to put in, but I don't think he minds.
Immortalizing it. That's
Yeah,
good stuff.
immortalize, honoring Sapphire Butterfly.
Yes.
So getting to do that was really cool.
That's
Let's-
awesome. Do we only get the vigilante
yeah.
side, or do we also get the regular side?
You
of
get to
the,
hear
the
all sides of the story. So you get
okay.
to hear how she was part of the goings on in Kintargo and stuff, and then what she's up to now.
That's
neat.
cool. Let's do the opposite. Were there any personalities that got included that you just weren't sure would be that interesting until either you started writing them or someone else maybe pitched that idea and then it turned out like way cool?
No, I think if we were uninterested in any of the individuals, either me or Eleanor, who is the co-developer on this, or anyone else on the Pathfinder editorial side of things, we wouldn't have put them in. We realized, if it's an NPC that we're not excited for, and the fans don't want to see it, then we're not going to put it in there. I mean, there are some that's like, oh, sure, we'll put that person in. I don't know anything about him, but Eleanor really wants to see them, or James Jacobs wants to see them, or whatever the case. Not to say that I dislike them, but I have no stake. Yeah, I don't have a dog in that race.
There's 42 of them. There's I'm sure there's some of them that you're like, I don't even really know this person.
Yeah,
so,
and I didn't before this, and that's kind of the fun part, is also getting to learn who these characters are as part of the development and putting this book together. And yeah, so anyone, there were a few that we thought about putting in that we intentionally held off on doing so because we knew, hey, there's going to be a Pathfinder Society book. It's best if we just put all the Pathfinder related important figures into that book so that it's all kind of as complete as can be. So if you look through this book and you're like, where's all the Pathfinders? Know that they're going to be just a few months down the line.
Okay.
Cool. Hey, what a great segue.
Well, actually, I did have one last question on the legends, and then after that, I'll let you do the segue.
Sure.
Too late, man.
The description of the book specifically does state Inner Sea region's biggest personalities.
Yes.
So does that mean that this isn't going to have legends from outside of the Inner Sea region?
It has one or two whose influence was felt in the Inner Sea. We mentioned that Hal Jin is in here, and her connection to the Pathfinder Society over the last, I don't know, what is it? 6 years? No, 10 years at this point.
It's been a while.
I mean, she's so tied into that we're like, we got to include her. Baba Yaga isn't in the Inner Sea anymore, but her influence is still being felt. We mentioned Geb, who has gone missing. He's nowhere in the Inner Sea, but he's still, he's still influencing it, even by not being there. So there are a few figures who aren't directly in the Inner Sea even at this moment, and some who are actually from ancient Golarion history. In the stream we showed off the first Dwarven king, Targic, who united the Dwarven population to complete the quest for Sky. He's long dead at this point, but his influence is still so important that he showed up in this book.
Very
awesome.
Cool.
So anyway, I suppose late segue. Speaking of Pathfinder Society, I believe September is going to have the Pathfinder Society guide.
Yeah.
Which I believe the stinger on it basically says that it's a globe-trotting organization of adventurers, scholars, and warriors all dedicated to exploration, collecting lost knowledge and treasure, and sharing it with the world. And that the Society Guide details everything the players and GMs need to know about the Pathfinder Society, from the basics of membership to the Society's various factions and the various lodges littered throughout the Inner Sea region.
Yep.
I like that they're littered throughout the Inner Sea region.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Crop up everywhere.
Yeah, sometimes in December it just kind of balls one up and tosses it and lets it land wherever it goes.
Puts a map up on the wall and throws a dart.
Yep.
There. So I suppose, speaking of the lodges, the description for the guide specifically mentions lodges in the Inner Sea. Are we going to get more information about the Society's interests across the rest of Golarion, so outside of the Inner Sea region?
There is a little bit on that, but because so much of the current goings on in Pathfinder, in the setting and the adventures and whatnot, is still focused on the Inner Sea, it's not going to be a big footprint of the book. I think we're doing a good job of making sure that if and when we decide to explore what the Society is doing in other parts of the world, it's not just, oh no, this came out of nowhere. There is, I think the Lantern Lodge is mentioned as one of the main lodges that's featured in the book. And Lantern Lodge itself is now located in Tiansha. So that is not in the Inner Sea, but because of the connections to the old Lantern Lodge faction and whatnot, we included them. So you get to see a little bit of what they're up to. And we mentioned, hey, they got feelers out all over the world, but it's mostly focused on the Inner Sea.
So speaking of those lodges, a lot of the backgrounds or sometimes feats seem to be tied to regions that you can be from. Are you going to do the same thing with lodges? So maybe if you come from a lodge in a specific area, you have access to maybe a different kind of background or something like that?
We have, I think every lodge has at least one mechanical item available to them. For example, the Magnamar Lodge has this, I think they're called Hide March Heidmark packs or something like that. Knaven Heidmark, who is the co VC on that lodge, makes these specialized like extra planar packs that he gives to any Pathfinder. It's like, hey, you're going on a mission. This has like everything you need,
Wow.
and it
It's like
basically
a
the
go
way
bag.
that the way the item works is it has like an extra dimensional connection to, I don't know, a pantry or something, a storage locker or something. But mechanically it just says, hey, you reach in and grab an item that costs no more than 1 gold piece. It's there. We don't care what it is as long as it's within the value that we said. So if you need some chalk right now, you reach in. Oh, look, good thing he prepped some chalk. Or I can reach in deep and get some other stuff, and it has an allotted amount of value that you can pull out of it before it runs out.
Man, that's helpful.
And
I think I'm
each-
going to
What
go
idea.
from there.
Yeah, and each lodge has an item that is kind of, hey, if you're at this lodge, you can snag one of these or pick one of these up.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's really fun.
That for like all my adventures, you know.
Yeah, and we try to make sure that they all work for specific each lodge. If you're in the which is it, the ice, I can't remember the lodge. There's a lodge that is ice themed in Lands of the Linnorm Kings. That one has like magical snowshoes available and stuff like that. So they're all themed to wherever you happen to be adventuring. This is probably going to be helpful.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Ice Fairy Lodge. Aha, I remembered.
There you
I'm
go.
not a bad developer.
We weren't going to judge you. I'm surprised you can remember half of the things that are probably necessary for your job. So,
Boy, 10, 12 years of content at this point. Jeez,
yeah, it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
Especially if you keep putting out these Lost Omen books, which we encourage you to. So this one here's a softball one for you. What is your favorite lodge? Or is there one detailed in this book that you found particularly interesting?
Is that
I'm
a softball?
a big.
I think so.
Again,
I'm asking you to
maybe-
pick a favorite child again.
Again, I've always been particularly big fan of Magnamar itself, the city. So I really like the Magnamar Lodge. I think, at least in this book, I really came to enjoy the Grand Lodge. The Grand Lodge itself has a big entry that's bigger than most of the lodges. So just like getting to know the ins and outs and understanding the daily life of Pathfinders at HQ is pretty cool. So getting to see that was pretty fun. Yeah, I'd say I'd go with the Grand Lodge, the biggest and the best.
Awesome.
Fair enough. All right. So there's obviously going to be a lot in this book for society players. But are any of the things present also helpful outside of society, or is it really geared toward people who are playing a Pathfinder?
Absolutely not. We want to make sure this book is as open and useful for as many groups and people as possible. The specific lodge items, some of them are uncommon where you had to like be part of the lodge or be working there. But beyond that, we tried our best to make sure all the new gear and spells and stuff are as usable by any group as we can. There are 4 Pathfinder archetypes at this point that exist. There's one for the swords, spells, and the
Scrolls.
Thank you.
Wait,
Plus
no.
the Pathfinder agent.
It's scrolls.
Yeah,
Scrolls,
and the
yeah.
Pathfinder agent. So all 4 of those archetypes have been out in either the World Guide or the Character Guide, and you can take those at this point, I think, without much hassle in regards to access and stuff. And we just put more feats for anyone that wants to be those, whether or not you're going to be in a Pathfinder Society campaign. But the book is also there if you're a GM and don't want to play Pathfinder Society scenarios and want to have your own Pathfinder Society themed campaign. You now have all the information you need about the ins and outs of the organization, how they do their missions and whatnot, and you can use that as you need. Or even just, hey, we happen to be playing in Absalom. I'm going to need some help. Maybe we can ask the Pathfinders. Now you have the book that can tell you what you can get from the lodge and how you can hire out Pathfinders for research and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Nice.
We have a question in the chat about if we're going to see the return of the Shadow Lodge.
Oh,
No, the Shadow Lodge isn't returning. Right now, we have the four main factions, Horizon Hunters and Vigilant Seal, and I'm not going to try the rest because I can't remember. But all those
The other
four
ones.
main factions remain the main factions that are part of the book. I think the Shadow Lodge, what they were up to, like their history is mentioned in there, but at least having read through the entire book several times at this point, I don't. Yeah, the Shadow Lodge isn't coming back until you, brave Pathfinder, bring it back.
it's
There you
true. Maybe if you're vocal enough. So I guess this last question, well, it'll be kind of a two-parter. So, and I know you may or may not be able to answer this. So, one, can we
Rick's
assume
favorite
that
questions.
this is the first in a series of books delving into the various organizations important to the Lost Omens setting?
Well, we set up 5 big organizations in the character
Yeah.
guide, which are the Firebrands, the Gambia, Knights of the Last Wall, Hell Knights, and the Pathfinders. Those I can remember. And the Pathfinder Society are obviously the big important thing. The game has the same name.
Yeah.
I think on the back cover, we always have the big splash title. I think considered having just say the name of the game on the back. But we'll see. All depends on how people react to this Pathfinder Society book and whether or not people want to see a whole big book on all the firebrands or the Magambia stuff, things like that. It's pretty easy to fill out the Pathfinder Society book because we have the entire history of the game and all the society organized play stuff to use that to flesh out the book. Firebrands, being a literal brand new organization, don't have all of that, so it's not as easy to let's look back on what the history was on the Firebrands. 'Cause I literally wrote all of the history, and that's about it. That's all I had.
I mean, I'm gonna say no to a giant book about the Hell Knights, but
I mean, it's Heather.
I think where it makes sense, we're gonna include more information on all of those. So if we ever did a book that's specifically just the old Cheliax region, it would make a lot of sense to have here's 20 pages. That's all the Hell Knight stuff that you need to expand on what you already have in the character guide. We'll see. We're also, not at all closing out the possibility there might just be another organization book that hey, then we'll look back on the other 4 organizations for a bit while we then focus on some new ones.
Oh, yeah. And I think I know the answer to the second part of this question in large part because you created them. But if so, which are you most personally most interested in exploring next?
Honestly, as much as I love the Firebrands, my concern about, do they have enough content to fill out 128 pages?
Do I have to write all this content?
Oh my god. Has me thinking the Magambia. They're great.
Yes!
I love the Magambia. Let's do that. So
The chat is also talking about wanting a Magambia book, and I personally love Magambia, so I'm with you on that.
I'm pushing it. I think Eleanor's pushing more Mwangi Magambia stuff. We'll see what happens. But we've been beating the drum, at least from our little section of the cubicle. That's
Nice.
more Mwangi. Let's do more Mwangi stuff.
Slipping threatening notes under people's doors.
wow, Rick took that to a dark place.
I do not promote a hostile work environment. I suppose moving from there, we are going to be looking at a book that I think we're expecting sooner, but it seems to be somewhat later. The Lost Omens, Absalom, the City of Lost Omens, which believe is, I think you mentioned it might be 4th quarter this year, but might be 1st quarter next year.
So last I heard on that book, because Eleanor and I have moved off from development and are continuing development on the line. So now it's up to Eric Mona and James Jacobs and Adam Daigle to bring it home. Last I heard from them is we're looking to finish up the book and have it ready to go by the end of the year. But it might slip into the early bits of next year, so maybe January, February. We'll see. I know they're working hard on getting that wrapped up. It's just there's so much Absalom. It's such an important part of the setting that fleshing it out all the way, it just it's a beast. But I think people are gonna love it because we're putting so much effort into that, and they're just putting a lot into it.
Absolutely. I think it was one of the PaizoCon panels. Eric claimed all of the blame for its delay, saying that he kept seeing new things to add to the book, and so the page count just kept growing. So we're not going to complain about more. But so the stinger on the back on it says that for nearly 5,000 years, the great city of Absalom has stood as the center of the inner sea culture, commerce, and prophecy. And now, with the death of the city's founder god Erden, the disappearance of the city's Lord Mayor, and newly launched attacks from some of its greatest foes, Absalom stands at the gateway to new and uncertain destiny. So the first question I have is actually about the name of this book. So I've never heard of Absalom referred to as the City of Lost Omens before. It seems like a kind of a new title there. Is this a reference or a hint or a new direction for the city, or?
Absalom is still definitely the city at the center of the world.
Yeah.
But I think putting it on the cover that it's the City of Lost Omens kind of ties into the push that we're trying to get to, have the Lost Omens setting be the kind of name that for all the Golarion stuff. And calling it the City of Lost Omens kind of centers it as the most important city in the Lost Omens setting. It will still be the like I said, city at the center of the world. It just, for someone who might not know much about what an Absalom is, if you know what a Lost Omens is, at the very least, you can see a City of Lost Omens. Oh, that might be an important thing. Or it might be where the Lost Omens came from. Who knows? And that might be enough to get you to look at the book.
Fair enough. So what I'm getting from this is that Absalom has a really good tourism department.
Yes, their marketing team has enormous budget.
Really good at branding. It's probably backed by the Church of Abadar.
Yeah, so this is a huge book. Tell us some stuff that's in it that nobody knows about yet, please.
Thanks.
I think we've said this, but no one caught that we said it. And I'm just going to say it again, just because I know we've already said it and I don't get in trouble. But
presented on a silver platter now.
So there's obviously there's a whole big history of the book, or of Absalom in the book. So we go into all of that. We go into a big district by district breakdown, which I think each district has something like 10 or more pages, detailing all of that. And then we go into a huge NPC listing that tells you how everyone's connected and all this other stuff. And there's monsters that are included, including a local cryptid, which is a weird crab man.
Oh man.
It's this weird crustacean, gross sea creature that if it happens to contort the right way, it looks like, just in silhouette, looks like, it's a guy with a cloak over his head. But then you get close, or it gets close, it's like, oh no, it's the monster.
Scuttle sideways at you.
Crab person.
I'm here for this.
So lots of cool stuff, lots of cool math. But the thing I was referring to is that we also have a new ancestry in this book. The Gilman, or as they're now being as Arketi in new Pathfinder 2nd edition, because everyone has a particular name for themselves, like the Aruxi for lizard folk. Arketi are featured as an ancestry in this book, and they're so directly tied to Absalom. They live in and around the waters of Absalom and in the city proper. They even have, I think, a neighborhood in the Puddles district.
That makes sense.
So we figured, hey, they're so important to the city, we might as well put their ancestry in here. So playable Gilman, playable Arketi are going to be showing up in this book for you. So if you were a player and you're like, hey, what's in it for me as a player? Beyond learning about a really super duper cool city, are there any mechanics? Yeah, here's a whole new ancestry for you to play as, where you can swim underwater and breathe all the water you want if you like.
I don't know about breathing the water in that bay, but that is cool.
It's true. That's
nice. Really neat. And as Jessica brought up, this is apparently, unless Eric Mona adds more to it, a 296-page book, which is over twice as large as the World Guide. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but will this be kind of a standard for region books going forward, or is Absalom the exception because it's the city at the center of the world?
I don't know, honestly. I would love to give a big book like Absalom to people every once in a while, as best as we can fit in our schedule and budgets and whatnot. So I think if they'll let us, we're going to continue to do big books and in spots where it makes sense. So if we did like a deep dive on a region, like we did with Absalom, let's say, hey, let's go back to the Saga Land, see what Varisia is up to and all that stuff. That might get 200 or close to 300 pages like Absalom is, if we can get away with it. When we think it makes sense, we'll give you the big books that give you deep dives that absolutely necessitate it for, hey, here's every district in the city and all the people. That's just eats up a lot of space really quick. So yeah, we'll do it when we can.
It's a really good idea. Imagine. I like that. More content.
Well, and there's so many cool places that while it is fun to, as a player, as a GM, kind of fill in some of the gaps, sometimes it is nice to have, something to pull from. So there's so many cool places in Golarion that I can imagine you could do that with a lot of places, a lot of regions and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And then, if they let me go to do that, that probably deserves a big book.
Let Luis do what he wants.
That's the message we're getting from this.
Yes.
So if you could, if they did let Luis do what he wants, what region would you personally be interested in tackling next?
Well, I think the obvious answer is a little place called Arcadia.
Yeah.
But if I have to keep it within the Inner Sea, looking at the meta regions, I'm particularly fond of places like the Golden Road and the Eye of Dread and the Wangi Expanse. If I had to right now choose one of those, I'd say let's do a Golden Road book, just because I have really in my heart strong ties to like Katapesh, because I ran Legacy of Fire as my very first AP.
Oh, it was my first
and loved it so much. I ran it a second time for a different group.
There you go.
So I like the Golden Road. I love what we've done with it, and it's just a different type of fantasy that we would offer compared to the stuff that you're kind of used to seeing at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure our listeners to our Mummy's Mask actual play would also definitely love the Golden Road included on that. So,
and our Tyrant's Grass game will eventually get to Arcadia.
I can't wait.
I know, Luis.
Me neither.
It's such a long wait. Speaking of adventure paths, we hear that you're writing book 1 of Fists of the Ruby Phoenix, the one that they just announced. Tell us a little bit about what you got cooking.
Despair on Danger Island.
Despair on Danger Island.
I love that title. Oh my god.
I don't want to give too much away because I feel that's more Patrick's wheelhouse, because it's his AP that he's running. But Despair on Danger Island, I think he mentioned on the panel that it's the qualifying round to get into the Ruby Phoenix tournament itself, rather than have a tournament that takes up 3 books, which I think might grow old for people. We're having the qualifier, the big tournament, and then, hey, this aftermath of obviously nothing went wrong and you just get to hang out for 3 months.
I mean, totally. Why would anything go wrong?
So the qualifier is very much in the vein of kind of like battle royale, but also like it's kind of hard to describe, but basically everyone's thrown onto a big island and last few teams standing get to go in. So you're going to have to contend with a lot of individuals wanting to get into that tournament while also having to survive on what is being called Danger Island, because it's still, hey, get thrown onto this island. We didn't clear out any of the monsters, but, good luck.
Under unknown battlegrounds, guys.
Basically, yes, it's a battle royale, and instead of 100 people, it's, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can make sure that there's 100 individual members all end up. See if I can make that work.
There you go. So, anything else you want to talk about that you're up to, that you want to share with people? Any cool side projects? What is Luis spending his time on?
Oh boy. I have been doing some homebrew stuff. My desire for Arcadia is such that I've started homebrewing things. So I've come up with a little, really tiny, small corner of Arcadia where I think if this ever becomes a proper book, I can kind of put it in without it ruining the entire vision for Daigle and me. It's a little safe bit. Been doing that. I've been in part of that homebrew stuff, coming up with new rules and setting material. And I started a Patreon recently that has been showcasing some of the ideas I'm putting together. Like, hey, what do you do with hero points beyond just re-rolling or keeping yourself from dying?
Actually, I really loved that first post that you put up there on the hero points. I was like, maybe I can convince Ross to implement this for Tales of Dark Moonville. I like the idea.
Yeah, so we'll see what comes of that. Maybe put it out for people to buy if they're really interested and don't want to contribute $3 a month for who knows how long it takes me to get that done. Yeah, and just working on other freelance projects that are unfortunately unannounced right now with Paizo and other companies. I'm set to be doing judging on the RPG Superstar contest here in the coming weeks, because that's wrapping up. By the way, if you don't know, go to rpgsuperstar.com, get your chance to maybe enter the contest if you want to. You just write a monster, send it in, and hopefully, get it published. That'll be a cool start for a lot of people who are interested in freelancing. And me and Patrick Reaney and a few other people who work for third parties are keeping an eye on that. So if you're interested in a career, that's a great way to maybe kickstart that for yourself.
That's awesome. And, considering the various restrictions a lot of us have on movement right now, maybe it's a good time to buckle down and write that monster stat block or whatever it is that you've been thinking about for a long time. So get that out to the world.
Prize money. So it's more than just bragging rights. You get a couple bucks.
You had me at money.
Are you playing or running any Pathfinder games right now?
Oh boy, am I. So I have been running Ruins of Aslant for my home group from back home in Nebraska since the playtest started. We started with the Pathfinder playtest and then upgraded to 2E when that's going on. And we're now in the 5th book by one Ron Lundeen, who, of course, writes only fun adventures that have no problems at all for PCs that go through it.
Oh, we feel that. That you, Ron.
So we're getting close to wrapping that up, which will be pretty exciting. It's my first official 2E campaign that I've run, and that's the same group that was part of my Hell's Rebels campaign that then led into Sapphire Butterfly, getting to Legends. I'm also running Return of the Rune Lords for people, my coworkers. I'd say people in the office. We're not in the office. We started off as first edition, and we eventually translated that, moved over to 2E, and are still in that. We're in the 4th book right now for that. I'm running some homebrew stuff that I'm actually recording some of that. We'll see if I ever put it out. It's just fun to record it because I think, I like trying to test out editing techniques and stuff, and that's a good thing to working on, because I do the Legend Lore podcast on No Direction, where we ask us questions about 2E and answer stuff there. So that's been helpful for practice, and that I don't have to put it out at all if I don't want to. I just can learn all the techniques through that.
We're big fans of recording, so
other stuff. Some of my other games, unfortunately, have been put on hold because the meeting is not as feasible right now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But Roll20 is great. Virtual tabletops are great. I've been running for my home group on Roll20 for 2 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
So I've gotten the hang of it, and it was pretty easy to transition Return of the Rune Lords for that as well.
Awesome. Well, do we want to open this up to the Q&A with chat?
We have quite a few questions.
Hold on. Isn't there one more book coming? Can I talk about that really quick?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yes, of course.
I only wrote down these
time.
You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, man.
I mean, for people who missed it at PaizoCon announcements, we're doing another Lost Omens book. It turns out having a line means we put out more books in that line. February is our Lost Omens Ancestry Guide.
Yes.
Which is all about
so excited
new ancestry material for anyone that is not dwarf, elf, gnome, goblin, halfling, or human, because they get enough love as it is.
Yeah.
Let's look at some of these other ancestries. So all the lizard folk getting new options, hobgoblins, all the cool APG ancestries and versatile heritages are getting more options. And then we're doing new stuff like the 2 cool new ancestries on the cover, the androids and the sprites.
Can I
That's
ask you
very
another
exciting.
question since you brought it
Sure.
up?
I brought it up.
I was
I dug
looking-
my own grave.
I was looking at the quest number 10. That's just released or is releasing soon. I don't know exactly.
Sovereigns.
The one in
Sovereign something or other.
Absalom, you do a whole thing. Yeah. Yes. And
One
the-
in Absalom, that narrows it down.
Yeah.
You know?
Whatever. The important part is that the boon is a background specific for kobold ancestries. Are we getting kobold ancestries? Did I miss that somewhere?
Yeah, it's in the APG actually.
Dang it!
APG
Okay, I'm so excited.
has 5 new ancestries and 5 what we call versatile heritages. So if you think of the half elf or half orc, which you can apply to humans, when you're a human, you can choose a heritage, and one of them is half elf or half orc. These are heritages that anyone can pick. Just I'm an elf and I happen to be a tiefling. Cool, I can grab that. So we're having the 5
Heather.
versatile heritages, which are
Mhm.
changeling, Dampier, and then 3 planar scions in the form of Aasimar, Duskwalkers, and Tieflings. And then the 5 new ancestries are Catfolk, Kobolds, Ratfolk, Orcs, and oh boy, what's this last one? Catfolk, Ratfolk. Here, let me
Kitsune?
just.
Is it Kitsune?
No, that's
Kitsune aren't in
that's
that
in the
book.
ancestry, isn't it?
That's in the ancestry guide. Let me pull up the APG really quick.
All right.
Let me flex on. Catfolk, Kobold, Orc, Ratfolk, and Tengu.
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 Good
Ah,
for
yeah.
friends.
I was gonna say you have an iconic Tengu now, so yeah, I should have known that.
Hey, we have Sudi can now be made in 2nd edition. Catfolk.
Yeah, because they even have the monolith in
Yeah, they did.
the
living monolith.
world,
That's
the world
true.
guide.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we can really have Sudi.
Oh,
That is not us saying we're translating to 2nd edition, because that may be more work than I'm able to do.
Yeah.
fair. I guess while I'm
As
just
much as I'm
asking-
enjoying 2E.
Well, I'm just asking my own personal
Jess
questions.
is like, I'm just gonna ask everything I can think of real quick.
You brought up the
for
ancestry
sure.
guide, so
Yeah, I said I was digging my own grave. I knew what I was doing.
Tell me about some druid orders. I tweeted at you like a million years ago about druid stuff, and you told me APG. So tell me, like, what cool druid stuff is there?
Well, APG not being in my line is not a book I don't feel great like spoiling a lot
He's
of it.
like, I can't tell you.
Dang.
So
can you
I-
just give her a number of them?
A number, yes.
More than
I-
one, I guess.
I'm gonna keep away from
like,
anything we haven't announced.
Fine.
So-
Yeah.
In fact,
We'll assume
I-
more than
as
one.
much as I mean, having to work on the Lost Omens line means I actually don't know everything that's in the APG. So
Yeah.
I would just be wrong maybe if I said, oh yeah, of course there's like 8 more druid orders in there.
You heard
yeah,
me
we'll
here
see.
first. It was 8.
Don't
It's
be
like
mean.
8. Like 8. You know.
All right.
It could be a
Zero,
3.
zero is like 8. It's also like circular, like an 8.
It's 2 zeros makes
It's
it
kind of like a
8.
pinch date. Yeah.
All right.
Anywhere
I'm gonna look at the chat
in that
questions now.
range.
Well, it's before we move on, I guess. Is there any ancestries that you're willing to talk about that you're very excited for people to get their hands on, outside of androids and kitsune and
Mhm. I mean,
all
I'm
those?
going to talk about only the ones that we've talked about at this point because I feel like
Okay.
I maybe talked about a few too many. I teased too many all at once, so it's not as fun to. We have to space them out a little more now for what we have.
No, I
left.
understand.
But I'm really excited about the androids in
Mhm.
particular. I'm a big fan of constructs and robots and all that stuff in general, so androids are great. And I know that a lot of people might be looking into Pathfinder because of their love for Starfinder, so bringing in the android is a great way to transition people in if they're at all interested. Hey, I played an android. Turns out you can do that here, and you just wear a shining suit of armor instead of some cool like cyberpunk outfits. And the android is exciting, not only because you get to play an android and have all the cool robot stuff and your nanites and all that comes with it, but also having to come up with ethnicities for androids was an interesting thing, which I think our writer for that, Jessica Catalan, knocked out of the park. I put it in the outline. Hey, I think these things would be cool. Ethnicities, I'll let you decide what, but she took them and ran with them and made them great. So the ethnicities and heritage is really interesting. So heritages for the androids are tied to what were they designed for. Sometimes
that's
androids
cool.
were built for like, oh, you're designed to be a warrior, or you're designed to be like a diplomat and stuff like that. So your different heritages will tie into what you're most well programmed to do. Doesn't mean you're just because you take the warrior or whatever heritage doesn't mean you can't be a wizard. You just might be, hey, a wizard that happens to know how to fight with a longsword because you were
Might just
programmed
be a
to fight.
really buff wizard.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So that's really interesting. And then the ethnicities kind of tie into just these interesting ideas. One we have is just the typical standard android, which we call the androphyn android. Hey, you kind of tied to Numeria and all the stuff that came with where you originated from. You're the most standard android. There's one that is, hey, there was this big ship that crashed in Numeria ages ago, and part of it crashed into the ground, and you were the androids that got thrown into the Darklands.
Oh.
And you had to adapt. And maybe your body looks really weird to have to, squeeze through like small crevices and have big eyes for more light and stuff like that. And you look really weird. You're technically an android, but you upgraded yourself over time to make sure you could work with that. So some of those ideas are just really interesting. So I'm hoping people like the ethnicities and heritages and stuff that we provided with the androids to just make them all more, just a little bit more unique, and make your specific android that you play as just a more interesting character.
Very neat.
I see a lot of people updating Iron Gods to 2nd edition now. So
Yeah.
at the very
Now
least,
we
that's
just
what I
need
see in
to-
the future.
Now we just need to get them some tech rules and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, true.
Not my job, though. That's the design team. Go bug them if you want technology.
Leave me alone with my words. All right, I'm looking through chat. So we're gonna go way back. These are all kind of random. So
Sure.
No, but before we dive too much into this, we only asked, I think, originally for 45 minutes. We've hit 55. Is it all right if we go for a little
Let's
longer?
do it. It's
All right.
It's fun to chat about these books. And
yeah, if you get tired of
mean,
us,
just share your
tell
passion.
us. It's fine.
again, I volunteered myself for this. I'm fine for it.
All
I
right,
offered myself as tribute.
here we go. So this is in reference to the Legends book.
Yeah.
Would you say that there are caster named spells in the book, kind of like D&D, like Big B's hand and that sort of thing?
I don't remember if we do. Let me look at Jatembe. He's the most likely
Ah, Jatembe, my man.
candidate.
He's the most likely to stick to his brand.
No, we don't have any. At least in his section, there's not any like Jatembe's blah 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 or anything like that. I think we could definitely see that here and there, but in this book, I don't believe we have any spells that are specifically tied to individuals as, oh, this is Nex's blah blah blah.
Makes sense. Let's see. Are there any Arcadian legends in that book?
No, it's all Inner Sea stuff. I did just see there is one named thing,
Oh.
which I'll just say is called Artorchus's Fire. Artorchus being the guy who creates the Sun Orchid elixir.
Okay.
So that is a named thing. That isn't a spell though, because he's an alchemist. So
Ah, there you go.
Ooh.
Okay.
but there are
Those
a few
alchemists know
named
branding,
things here and
though.
there.
Let's see. Is Shensen in the book?
Yes, alongside her other Rune Lord buddy, I guess is a strong word there. Bellamarius and Sorsen share an entry together.
I look forward to the next Rune Lords thing, which is going to be a Shinsen Bellamar's buddy cop.
My
Yep.
Adventure
God.
Path.
It turns out they are the agents of Edgewatch.
Oh, there you go.
Let's see. There's a lot of questions about if specific people will be in there, like Alak from Age of Ashes, and that sort of thing. But I'll skip those because there could be
Any
like 1,000.
individuals that we include were all from stuff that is from the start of 2nd edition to basically from the character guide to earlier, but we don't want to include anything from very recent APs. Tarbathon was standing, because people might still be playing those, and if we said, "Oh, hey, here's this person from Age of Ashes," turns out this is what happened. It's like, oops, I just spoiled myself from something. I guess 2 books from now. I don't know. We wanted to avoid
true.
that kind of situation happening.
Tarbathon's a cool dude.
Says
Yeah.
we're gonna
is
watch
People
you.
interested.
Entire
I mean,
Scott's about to watch you.
Tarbathon is literally older than Pathfinder, so he is a pretty cool dude.
That's true.
He's also undead, so technically cool, temperature-wise.
Yes.
Oh,
That
wow,
is also
Jess.
true.
That's what I've got. I
Great
don't
work.
That is technically correct.
Well, that's all the time I have now.
know. Oh no, I scared Luis away. Let's see. Will Walkenna be in any upcoming Lost Omen books?
Walkenna is featured in one of the character write-ups for Legends. Walkenna himself isn't one of the Legends, but we get to meet one of the Bright Lion members, one of the leaders of the Bright Lions, in fact, Sihar, and how Sihar's connection to Walkenna is an important thing because, hey, you got to take down Walkenna. We're the Bright Lions. That's what we do. So Walkenna shows up there, and I think we'll see about including Walkenna where we can, because I think he's pretty neat antagonist. So, I think surprisingly Eleanor likes him a bit. Or maybe I'm just reading that wrong, but I've yet to see any complaints about Walkenna again. No, let's include Walkenna.
Nice. Let's see. This is a pretty great question. Timely. Will Paizo ever do a source book for LGBTQIA lore in Golarion?
Oh boy. That would be, that's an interesting idea. I think it would more likely be seen as something like, if we do like another region book or whatever, we might say, here is how in this individual area and then in this area and this area, how that representation exists, how here's the characters that are queer and all that stuff. But like in a way, Firebrands would be that book. I mean, if you remember the opening to the organization's chapter, there's a Firebrand stealing away his boyfriend from the wedding.
Yeah.
The amazing swinging.
Which is like the biggest, I think, there's a lot of people internally that are like, yeah, Firebrands are like the gayest thing and we love it. So maybe that would be a Firebrands book. I don't know.
Here's a good question. It's about the questionnaire that you sent out. Are you still taking answers on that? Is it still open?
Sure. Yeah, it's still open. I can get you a link for that when we're done here. Awesome. It was just I think I made a silly joke to like deflect not having to answer something in my AMA on the PaizoCon Discord server. That's like, I think someone asked, hey, can we get Samsarans in the Ancestry Guide? It's like, I'm going to try my best. Boy, howdy, here, fill out the survey. I made a joke to, tell me what you want. And someone's like, oh, yeah, I'll fill out a survey. It's like, maybe I'll make a survey. So it's a completely unofficial, like, it's interesting to see people's ideas. It's not at all scientific in any way. But it's also fun to have read those in advance of the Ancestry Guide reveal. So people are like, hey, bring the android back. It's like, you're going to be very happy in just a few days. But yeah,
we listened
like
to you
hear,
individually.
I like to hear people's opinions on that. So I'll leave it open for as long as people are willing to answer questions on it. And who knows, maybe I'll put out another one later to act like, look, we knew what you wanted all along, but secretly, please tell us what you want.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with asking people what they want.
No, and I think if enough people are willing to do so, I might see about bugging our marketing team about doing official surveys like that and seeing what we can do. I know it's something that James Jacobs has expressed. Like, it'd be great if we like put a questionnaire in like every shipment that says, tell us what you want. Well, do you like this book? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it'd be helpful to get that data.
I think that
I know at least one person.
People that play this game are pretty opinionated and always happy to give those opinions. So
we are a vocal lot. Yes. I know at least one person who, upon finding out that I was going to be having an interview with you, Luis, asked if we could please get some material set in gold. And I don't know how many
Oh.
strings you can pull on that, but
There is one of the legends in the book is featured is a Galt NPC. So
there you
go.
are.
Look, turns out I already did it, and
Hey.
I want to do more with Galt if we can.
Excellent.
Gotta
Let's
say,
see.
that place seems like it needs some firebrands. So
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Actually, it had some firebrands and they failed.
Oh, that's sad.
So it looks like we've got a lot of path folk out here who are also really into prying. So I'm just going to let them pry for me. Here's a question. What are all the different heritages for sprites?
I think we have 5 of them. And we've said that one of them is the pixie, who instead of being tiny like the rest of the sprites is small, so you don't have to worry about having to enter people's spaces to attack them and your reach and all that stuff. We also said we had Griggs because they're on the cover, and there are 3 more.
There you go.
There you go.
surprised.
Although my favorite answer from the comments is vanilla, cherry, and peach sprites. So that's
Yes,
fun.
honey flavor and all these interesting flavors. It's great.
Oh, apparently we got Sorshin and Shenzhen confused.
Oh,
Shenzhen,
yes, actually.
Shenzhen being James Jacobs' NPC. She was one that almost made the cut for the book, but we ended up not. There's just too many people that we wanted to. Yes, she's in Band of Bravos. So you want to learn more about Shenzhen, go there. James Jacobs will happily tell you all he wants about Shenzhen.
If you want to go back, I think 2 PaizoCons ago to our interview with James Jacobs, he will also tell you all about Shenzhen.
Yeah.
So.
And we didn't get a chance to include Shenzhen, but he did end up writing a different NPC for the book.
Okay.
But Sorshin is in there, so teaser.
Sorshin's in there. Yep.
So we got a free one, kind of.
There you go.
All right, let me see if there's any other questions hanging out in here. Here's a fun question. Is Grim Ranger asks, are we going to see you taking part in some of the games on the Find the Path Discord? We have a lot of play-by-post happening there.
Luis is very busy, y'all.
I was going to say.
I'm just reading the question.
I think he just recently announced that he has 3 adventure paths he's doing.
Right?
Yeah, I am a bit busy. I think all of my attempts at play-by-post over the years have eventually led to me not contributing as much, and then it fizzling out, and I feel really bad. We'll see. I mean, I'd come on Find the Path and do an episode or something, like a one-shot or something.
We'll probably hold you to that.
That I think is easier because I can schedule it weeks or months in advance and be like, okay, this Saturday or whatever, I can block out 4 hours and stuff.
Okay,
but
Rick.
A more dedicated game, I think, would be harder to do. Now, again, a one shot, if the Path folk want to get something together, maybe I can do that as well. Who knows? No promises.
All right, so I'll make a note here to contact Luis's agent and let's see what we can make happen
Our
there.
people talk to your people.
Yeah.
Which is really just us talking to Luis, right?
Heather. Let's see. Are there any Android options? I think you kind of touched on this. Are there any Android options to make them more construct-like and less human-like?
Yeah, there's a few that tie into their difficulty with emotions that tie into more of that as you level up and grab some of the ancestry feats that make it even easier to deal with emotion and fear effects and stuff like that.
And can they look less human? You've talked about the Darklands ones kind of evolving, I guess.
Yeah. I guess it really depends on how you want them to look. There's not any official, take this ancestry feat and you suddenly have Terminator face or whatever. Yeah, really up to you.
Ooh, here's a fun question. If you could go to a party put on by someone, we'll make this the last question. If you could go to a party put on by someone in the Legends book, who would it be? Whose party are you attending?
Tessa Fairwind is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Current day Sorshin is probably a good one.
Yeah.
Who else is it?
I like that you have to specify there.
I'm looking at the table of contents really quick to see who else might be fun?
I'm gonna go to an old mage.
If you want to screen share that, that'd be no.
Maybe.
Just joking.
Maybe. Yeah, I think those two. Probably Tessa Fairwind is the one to go with on that.
Very cool.
I was gonna say, I'm sure she throws pretty amazing pirate party.
Yeah.
It's true. All right. Anything else? Anybody?
No,
I
I think that's it. Well,
Yeah.
again,
I'm a somewhat open book. It turns out.
I'm a heavily redacted open book. Well, no, again, thank you so much for running through the 3 books that you have there, as well as the Ancestry. But actually, I do have a final question. When is the Ancestry book expected out?
Ancestry Guide is currently slotted for February of 2021.
February 2021.
Happy birthday to Heather.
Yeah, there you go.
Excellent.
So we can all get that for Heather for her 23rd birthday.
700
Aw,
copies
look
of
at
it.
you being nice.
Shh, it's all secret. Yeah, again, thank you, Luis, so much for coming out and joining us and sharing your insight and your information with with both us as well as the Pathfolk at large. And once again, thank you for bringing in or drawing more attention to especially the Black trans community, but the Black Lives Matter movement in general. And again, hopefully we can anyone that's able to donate, or anyone who can donate is able to. And again, our all we can do is try to do our best and make sure that the table is a safe space for everyone, and that we do what we can to support our communities at large. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, and thank you, of course, for all the great work you're doing there. And we'll have to see if we can't weasel some more information out of you as we get a little closer to Gen Con.
Ah,
And as
there
Luis
will
was
be,
able,
I mean, we make announcements all the time, so
yeah,
every time we make an announcement, I'm happy to come on here and then tease you with the little information I'm willing to give.
very well. Well, we'll hold you to that, and I may very well also hold you to that potential open gaming slot if you
Sure.
Yeah.
have the time of the. Yeah, a little crossover event, that'd be amazing.
Yes, good.
Good.
But yeah, I guess that's it for us today. So thank you, Pathfolk, for joining us this evening and for all of your amazing, insightful questions, mostly just trying to drag more information out of Luis.
Thanks.
And I guess until next time, good luck, Pathfinders.
Everybody.
Bye.